Всяка година в средата на ноември Солун привлича хората от филмовата индустрия от цял свят. Тук те показват филмите си, обучават студенти, дискутират идеите си. И така в продължение на 50 години. Защо кино сега? Това бе логото на юбилейното издание на филмовия фестивал. В продължение на 10 дни режисьори, сценаристи и филмови продуценти от цял свят се опитваха да формулират тенденциите в световната филмова индустрия. Ето и заключенията им. Президентът и изпълнителен директор на Fox Film Entertainment бе безспорно най-преследваната личност в Солун. В една от паузите намери време и за нашия екип. Mr. Yiannopoulos, how do you understand the logo of Thessaloniki Film Festival? Why cinema now?
I don't understand it. I think cinema is forever. So I don't think cinema ever stopped since its creation, and I don't think it ever will stop being a tremendous way for people to express themselves and for audiences to enjoy themselves. So I actually didn't understand it, but I think cinema is forever.
For me, it sounds like a little bit of concern about the state of the film industry now. Are you at all concerned with the state of the film industry now?
I think there's been a concern with the film industry almost every year of its existence. In the early years is what is the film industry? In the later years is television will destroy the industry, and then it was video will destroy the industry. I think the industry, like any industry and any economic reality, has its ups and downs financially. But creatively, I think it's more alive than ever. So I'm not concerned about the future of the film industry.
Now it seems to me that the question is more film versus internet. How would you comment?
That's not a distinction that I understand. The internet is a way of transmitting information and images. Film and cinema. Film is one way to capture cinema. Digital is another way to capture cinema. I think we have to be careful about our terms. Cinema is telling a story with moving images. The internet is one way to see it. I still think the best way to see it is in a movie theater. But if people can also see it on the internet, I think that's a good thing.
At least it's much cheaper, not to say that it's without money at all, but anyway.
Yeah.
What will be your advice to the filmmakers, especially young filmmakers in the Balkans? How could they succeed in the world stage?
Well, I think to try and get as much training as possible in school and in film school, and as working with other filmmakers, and to get their hands on some equipment, which is very inexpensive now. Digital cameras are relatively cheap, and editing equipment and software is still cheap, and they should try and make some films and express themselves, and hopefully someone will notice, and we'll have some great new voices coming out of the Balkans.
Той е режисьорът, който спечели почитатели за германското кино из всички краища на планетата и от всички възрасти. В Солун Вернер Херцог получи Златен Александър за цялостно творчество.
I think there are people out there who are not very talented but extremely skilled, and they still manage to make fairly good films. If you are, for example, someone who is very much into the technical side, let's say digital effects, and you are really good in this and imaginative in digital effects, I think in some way you can learn a lot of that, and skill can be accumulated, and you can manage some of that stuff. But poetry, and it occurs in cinema once in a while, poetry is not a skill that you can learn. You probably learn it only through life itself. The Mexicans, by the way, have a very good expression for it, pura vida. And it's not just the pureness of life, it's a raw, pure life. Go out for it. And the poet, I have some sort of another dictum, the poet must not avert his eyes. And that means go out and watch WrestleMania, and go out and work as a warden in a lunatic asylum. For the men, go out and work as a warden work as a bouncer in a sex club. That's where you become a filmmaker. That's where you become a poet, I think. So talent is something very hard to grasp, and I cannot really describe it. But you will sense it. You will sense it that there's something in you, and you will sense that there's an urgency to tell a story to an audience. If you do not have this urgency, the skills do not help you beyond a certain point.
Той е продуцент на филми, които променят историята на киното през 20 век. Достатъчно е да спомена лентите на Бернардо Бертолучи, Последният император и Малкия Буда. Как всъщност открива от кой проект може да излезе хубав филм?
It's very difficult, of course, to understand, but you have to think in the size of the film, how the film, whether it's going to be a little film or a big film, whether you can find enough people to be interested in that idea. And of course, if it's a film that is an entertainment or an action movie, it's bigger than a movie that is something unusual or strange. So, that is the important thing, is to sort of assess how many people are going to see your film in some way, and so that you can make the film in the right size,
What is your advice for the new filmmakers who are entering now the industry?
Just it's the best life in the world, and that they must keep the enthusiasm in this very difficult business. But it's always been like that, because many people want to make movies, and there are not that many opportunities. And to find a better idea than their colleagues. And, somebody has got to find, the best idea, whether it's a story about tragedy or happiness or whatever it's about. It has to be something very special. And that is what is going to get even the 5-minute film made, the 10-minute film, the 1-hour film, or the feature-length film made, is the uniqueness of the idea.
In the digital era, the equipment is very accessible to everybody. The film schools all around the globe are flourishing. They produce every 3 or 4 weeks new filmmakers just with one course. How does all this affect the quality of the films?
Well, it's a change. There's a big change, because in the past the film had to be made by professionals only. And now non-professionals can make films, because, as you said, all equipment is accessible to anybody who has, everybody's got access to a video camera and a computer. So, but talent and being a great filmmaker, that's in very short supply. So, only still a small number of people, like in the painting or in literature. Everybody writes books. There are only a few great books. Everybody can do a movie like that, or everybody can do a painting like that, but there are only very few that get through. But you just have to push forward and hope that you're the one with the talent and the luck.
And what is your personal answer for the basic question of the festival? Why should we talk about cinema now?
Because why cinema? Because the cinema has got a big importance, and even though it's changing the way it's showing, we still want to be told stories. And with the conventions of filmmaking, we still want to be told stories. We need to be told stories like that. And the film festivals are very, very important to get these ideas around.
Признава, че е работил всички възможни работи в киното, преди да се спре на писането на сценарии. Why cinema now? Why we should talk about the cinema now? Why we should bother to discuss the cinema now?
Well, I think because cinema is so important, and I think it's important now for the same reasons it was important when it was invented. Although it was invented as a 20th century thing, I think what fascinated people about it was that they could look at themselves. It was a kind of mirror, and I think we have the same fascination now, and perhaps we realise that it's very, very important to be looking at ourselves right at this moment in time.
Many people from the different part of the film industry have been talking about the threat that the new technology is for the cinema. It seems to me that the work of the screenwriter is at least in threat from the new technology.
Well, yeah, I think as long as you think of screenwriting in its broadest terms, so that you're talking about telling stories using images and sound, that's all we're talking about. There'll always be work for screenwriters, but I think screenwriters have to be very proactive. I don't think they should sit back. I think they should be involved in filmmaking. I think they shouldn't think of themselves as academics shut away from the world. They have to be part of the world and part of the filmmaking world.
What is your personal recipe for a successful screenplay?
Oh, my personal recipe. I wish if I had a personal recipe, I would follow it every time I write a screenplay. And every time I try and write a screenplay, it's the same thing. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to finish it. It's always like that. All I can say is that if you have a passion to tell that particular story, if you need to tell that story, then you will tell it. But also I think it's worth remembering that stories are like jokes, and you tell a joke or you tell a story because you want someone to listen to it. So you have to engage with the person you're telling the story to.
Why did you choose for yourself the profession of the screenwriter?
By accident. I became a screenwriter because at that particular time I wanted to spend more time at home with my wife, and instead of going away on a shoot, it was better if I was at home, I thought. But then what happens is that when you're writing a screenplay, you get in a bad mood for no reason other than that some totally fictitious character is having a bad time, or you don't know what to do with them. So maybe sometimes it's better if you go out of the house. So I've started directing now to get me out.
Have you been challenging to direct your own stories?
Yeah, I've started to direct a little bit, and I really enjoy it because you can. It's interesting because the writing always goes on into the filmmaking process more, and the directing begins a much earlier stage than people often think. So I enjoy the opportunity to direct and the experience to direct, but also I like writing for other people to direct. So I hope to have the two things going. That's my dream, is to be able to write for other people and also to write for myself to direct.
I wish you success, and my last question is, what is your advice for the new people who enter this business?
My advice is only to keep hold of that initial passion that made you want to go into films in the first place, and never imagine that you know everything.
Тя е сърцето и двигателната машина, която стои зад успеха на фестивала в последните години. Ето и мнението и за участието на българското кино във форума.
Κρίνω ότι είναι πάρα πολύ σημαντική η συμμετοχή του βουλγαρικού κινηματογράφου. Ο βουλγαρικός κινηματογράφος αναπτύσσεται και εμείς σαν φεστιβάλ έχουμε αναπτύξει σχέσεις με το φεστιβάλ της Σόφιας και ανταλλάσσουμε ταινίες και τεχνογνωσία πάνω σε διάφορα θέματα. Επίσης, συνεργαζόμαστε στο κομμάτι της αγοράς. Έχουμε ένα φόρουμ συμπαραγωγών και σε ένα κομμάτι που αφορά στην αγορά των ταινιών μας συνεννοούμαστε και εργαζόμαστε μαζί.
50 χρόνια είναι μια πολύ όριμη ηλικία για ένα φεστιβάλ. Ποια είναι τα χαρακτηριστικά του φεστιβάλ Θεσσαλονίκη, τα οποία το κάνουν μοναδικό?
Είναι μια πόλη η οποία αγκαλιάζει καταρχήν τις ταινίες. Το κοινό της είναι πολύ ζεστό. Οι αίθουσες είναι πάντα γεμάτες. Βλέπουν δύσκολες ταινίες με μια θετική διάθεση. Μέσα σε αυτούς κάθονται και διανομείς, κάθονται και δημοσιογράφοι, κάθονται αγοραστές, προγραμματιστές φεστιβάλ. Βλέπουν τις ταινίες σε ένα τέτοιο θετικό περιβάλλον και πιστεύω ότι αυτό λειτουργεί θετικά για την ίδια την ταινία. Επίσης, ο χώρος που έχουμε είναι υπέροχος. Εδώ στο λιμάνι και στην πλατεία Αριστοτέλους, οι αποθήκες, έχουμε εκθεσιακούς χώρους πολύ ωραίους, χώρους για συναυλίες. Έτσι, όλη τη μέρα ο θεατής πηγαίνει από αίθουσα σε αίθουσα, από συναυλία σε συζήτηση και μετέχει μιας εμπειρίας συνολικής.
Ποια θα είναι η πορεία του φεστιβάλ από εδώ και πέρα?
Το φεστιβάλ θα συνεχίσει να ανακαλύπτει νέες τάσεις, να είναι ένα βήμα για τους νέους δημιουργούς. Θα πατά στέρεα στο παρελθόν, αλλά θα κοιτάζει προς το μέλλον, προς τις νέες τεχνολογίες. Θα είναι ένα φεστιβάλ με ισχυρό διεθνή χαρακτήρα, αλλά ταυτόχρονα θα προωθεί και μέσα από τα αναπτυξιακά του προγράμματα, την αγορά, το Crossroads, το Balkan Fun, τον κινηματογράφο της ευρύτερης περιοχής της Νοτιοανατολικής Ευρώπης και των Βαλκανίων, σε όλο τον κόσμο.
Γιατί διαλέξατε αυτό το λόγο φέτος, Why Cinema Now?
Αυτή ήταν μια σκέψη που κάναμε, γιατί για τα 50 χρόνια δεν θέλαμε να είμαστε νοσταλγικοί. Θέλαμε να κοιτάμε προς το μέλλον. Και όπως είπε ο μεγάλος δημιουργός, ο Ζαν Ρενουάρ, για να κρατηθεί ο κινηματογράφος ζωντανός πρέπει να ανακαλύπτει τα πάντα από την αρχή. Έτσι θέσαμε αυτό το ερώτημα, που είναι το κεντρικό ερώτημα της φετινής μας διοργάνωσης, που είναι ερώτημα που κοιτάει στο στοχασμό, στην συζήτηση και στο μέλλον. Έχουμε φτιάξει μια έκδοση όπου όλοι οι σπουδαίοι δημιουργοί και τεχνικοί του κινηματογράφου που πέρασαν από το φεστιβάλ αυτά τα χρόνια απαντούν σε αυτή την ερώτηση Why Cinema Now? Γιατί πρέπει να υπάρχει κινηματογράφος τώρα ή γιατί κάνει ο καθένας προσωπικά κινηματογράφο τώρα, και ο καθένας έχει δώσει μια δικιά του απάντηση σε αυτό το ερώτημα.
Και ποια είναι η δική σας απάντηση?
Θα διάλεγα σαν καλύτερη την απάντηση ίσως του Alexander Payne και θα την αισθενιζόμουν, γιατί Why Cinema Now? Because cinema always.
И така слуховете за предстоящата смърт на киното се оказаха силно преувеличени. Киното е живо и успява да намери нови пътища към почитателите си. Една разходка из улиците на Солун по време на фестивала е достатъчна, за да се убедите в това. Един нов вид кино, уличното кино, направи премиерата си в Солун. Под майсторските ръце на режисьорите фасадите на сградите оживяха по необичаен начин.